And in every case, I had a very literal version to work from, although I didn't know the language. Very often it was a case where I had ideogram by ideogram and notes for each ideogram in the order that they made up. And try to make out of this something which didn't have any of the presuppositions of the form that it had in the original. In other words, I wasn't trying to translate proverbs into an English proverb. I wasn't trying to transform a kind of Malayan poem into a comparable thing in English. It didn't have to be a proverb. It didn't have to be a poem in English. It didn't even have to be grammatical. It had to be something which was not yet definable, but seemed to me at that point to have a kind of life which arose out of its being irreducible. And I want to set those at the beginning of what I want to read later on, not as a, heaven knows, as a comment, but just as a kind of benchmark that we'd be moving from and back to and from and back to. I mean, the first of these are come from a collection of Korean proverbs, and in this case there was a series of ideograms with the literal versions for each ideogram. Big pond, little ant hole, the whole bank falls in. Goes all right, take the credit. Goes all wrong, blame your ancestors. Get to like most anything if you try hard enough. You've got an axe, but you can't use it. The other one's got a needle, but he can. You give the child you don't like one extra. Three bushels of beads, they don't make a string if they haven't got a string. Only have to have a toothache, and they give you something to chew. Worth burning down the house sometimes for the fun of killing the bed bugs. All right, you've nothing to give me. Don't break my bowl. Can't even beg without clothes. The feathers come first, then flight. Blind horse follows bells. Too hot, no taste. A tailor dies with the end of a thread in his mouth. It's a kind of a motto, you'd like to have for yourself. Ask the mouth, it says cake. Smart, a cat rolling an egg. Charcoal writes everybody's name black. Those are some Korean ones. I want to go on and as a kind of contrast, read some Malaysian ones to show the difference that, you get, even if you don't know the language, I guess, following the same mode through different things from different languages. These are not proverbs so much as they're a little kind of popular poem, which was a very tiny thing in which the form was abandoned because it would mean nothing in English. These are all called figures, by the way, because of all of the different meanings there are in English to figure, including, starting from image as a figure of speech, coming down through character and figure in the sense of a form. Slow splashing, splashing, wakes me, and I cling to the wet pillow. Stepping on a long thorn, to me the sight of her hair. Little lights in the orchard, and she is hung with pieces of glass, and I am near death because she looked at me. Why do you pretend to light the empty lantern? Why do you pretend that there is a flame in you? Some wear bracelets on their wrists. I wear them on my ankles and go my own way in love. I see wind far away in flags. My heart is not patient, sick with waiting. Nails dyed with henna, fragrance of poured rose water. You are my sickness and you are my cure. Ferns bend into the water. Over there egrets are flying. I sit helpless with longing. Moonlit backwater. It is an Egyptian prince weaving, but the light in my eyes is you. The great flocks of green pigeons may not come back, but he is like my shroud, which may rot but will never be changed. The fish line goes out and out, but one end is in my hand. Well, if there's time, I may come back to some translations, but I want, not by way of continuity so much as a contrast, to go on to some prose, and some prose of my own, and it's equally recent. It's from this last summer. And I'll read some more, several pieces of prose in the course of the evening, and they aren't remotely alike, although they're part of the same collection. This first one's very different from any of those translations that I've been reading. At least part of it is faintly satiric. It's called Make This Simple Test. Blindfold yourself with some suitable object. If time permits, remain still for a moment. You may feel certain of your senses begin to swim back toward you in the darkness, singly and without their names. Meanwhile, have someone else arrange the products to be used in a row in front of you. It is preferable to have them in identical containers, though that is not necessary. Where possible, perform the test by having the other person feed you a portion, a spoonful, of each of the products in turn, without comment. Guess what each one is, and have the other person write down what you say. Then remove the blindfold. While arranging the products, the other person should have detached part of the label or container from each and placed it in front of the product it belongs to, like a title. This bit of legend must not contain the product's trade name, nor its generic name, nor any suggestion of the product's taste or desirability or price. It should be limited to that part of the label or container which enumerates the actual components of the product in question. Thus, for instance, contains dextrinized flours, cocoa processed with alkali, non-fat dry milk solids, yeast nutrients, vegetable proteins, agar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, dried egg yolk, guar, sodium cyclamate, soya lecithin, imitation lemon oil, acetyl tartaric esters of mono and diglycerides as emulsifiers, polysorbite 60, 1/10 of 1% of sodium benzoate to retard spoilage. Or contains anhydrated potatoes, powdered whey, vegetable gum, emulsifier, glycerol monostearate, invert syrup, shortening with freshness preserver, lactose, sorbic acid to retard mold growth, caramel color, natural and artificial flavors, sodium acid pyrophosphate, sodium bisulfite. Or contains beef extract, wheat and soya derivatives, food starch modified, dry sweet whey, calcium carrageenan, vegetable oil, sodium phosphates to preserve freshness, BHA, BHT, propylene glycol, pectin, niacinamide, artificial flavor, U.S. certified color. There should be not less than 3 separate products. Taste again without the blindfold. Guess again and have the other person record the answers. Replace the blindfold. Have the other person change the order of the products and again feed you a spoonful of each. Guess again what you are eating and drinking, or drinking in each case, if you can make the distinction. But this time do not stop there. Guess why you are eating or drinking it. Guess what it may do for you. Guess what it was meant to do for you. By whom? When? Where? Why? Guess where in the course of evolution you took the first step toward it. Guess which of your organs recognize it. Guess whether it is welcome to their temples. Guess how it figures in their prayers. Guess how completely you become what you eat. Guess how soon. Guess at the taste of locusts and wild honey. Guess at the taste of water. Guess what the rivers see as they die. Guess why the babies are burning. Guess why there is silence in heaven. Guess why you were ever born. I want to go back from that chronologically and read some poems from a book called The Moving Target that was published 6 years ago. Somebody's late for a plane. I want to read one of the early poems from a book called The Moving Target, and there are several poems at the beginning of that book which are in the first person. I think I've been accused of writing all of them autobiographically, and none of them are straight autobiography. I don't think this one needs to have anything said about it. It's a poem called Home for Thanksgiving. I bring myself back from the streets that open like long, silent laughs, and the others spilled into in the way of rivers breaking up, littered with words, crossed by cats and that sort of thing. From the knowing wires and the aimed windows. Well, this is nice on the 3rd floor in back of the billboard which says now improved, and I know what they mean. I thread my way in and I sew myself in like money. Well, this is nice with my shoes moored by the bed and the lights around the billboard ticking on and off like a beacon. I have brought myself back like many another crusty, unbarbered vessel launched with a bottle. From the bare regions of pure hope where for a great part of the year it scarcely sets at all. And from the night skies regularly filled with old movies of my fingers, weightless as shadows groping in the sluices. And from the visions of veins like arteries, and from the months of plying between can and can, vacant as a pint in the morning, while my sex grew into the only tree, a joyless evergreen. And the winds played hell with it at night, coming as they did over at least 1,000 miles of emptiness, thumping as though there were nothing but doors, insisting, come out. And of course I would have frozen. Sunday, a fine day with my ears wiped and my collar buttoned, I went for a jaunt all the way out and back on a streetcar, and under my hat with the dent settled in the right place, I was thinking maybe a thought which I have noticed many times like a bold rat. I should have stayed making some of those good women happy for a while at least, Vera with the eau de cologne and the small fat dog named Joy, Gladys with her earrings, cooking, and watery arms, the one with the limp and the fancy sheets. Some of them are still there, I suppose. Oh, no. I bring myself back, avoiding in silence, like a ship in a bottle. I bring my bottle. Or there was thin pearl with the invisible hairnets. The wind would not have been right for them. They would have had their times, rugs, troubles. They would have wanted curtains, cleanings, answers. They would have produced families, their own and our own, hen friends and other considerations. My fingers sifting the dark would have turned up other poverties. I bring myself back like a mother cat transferring her only kitten, telling myself secrets through my mustache. They would have wanted to drink ship, sea, and all, or to break the bottle. Well, this is nice. Oh, misery, 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 you fit me from head to foot like a good grade suit of longies, which I have worn for years and never want to take off. I did the right thing after all. One of the things that I was thinking of doing tonight was to read the poems in a more or less chronological order and intersperse them with a few translations and a few pieces of prose which completely go against that order. And one of the reasons I hoped that I've never done that, and I hope it may work, is because the kind of prose that I was thinking of reading is something quite recent. I mean, it's something entirely from the last year, since last Easter. And one of the things that pleases me about it, I don't know whether the prose is any good at all, but it seems to have come closer. It seems as though part of a kind of writing that I've come to recently is pulling toward the poetry that I've been working, as though two strands were coming together. And somehow by playing them off against each other, if that's so, it might be clear. And I thought I'd read this translation. I thought I'd read another piece of prose as a kind of, since it is quite recent, as a contrast to that poem which was written nearly 10 years ago. Again, it's a question of, something in the first person. There's no great similarity of theme. It's awfully hard to find, too. I'm looking for one which has a very definite first-person voice, but I'm finding it very hard to find. Okay, skip it. We'll just read a different piece of prose, and it won't be in the first person. This is very close to the one that I was looking to read anyway. It's called The Dark Sower. Now, although we say it is spring, the days of glass are assembling. Mogog, the dark sower, walks the earth once more. For him it is the time of year, but for him a year is elapsed that we have not learned to describe, since for us it has come only once. Is it 3,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 years? Between sowings, as the centuries pass without his reappearance, his figure and his office are mistaken. He becomes confused with lesser and more sociable deities. He is portrayed as the gray god who mildews the grain, hence as the lord of ailment. He occurs on their altars with a face of smoke, and they pray to him not to be consumed. He becomes the god of ice, more accurately, and they imagine that it is the ice they know, and they offer him fish and birds to seize and hold in his heart. They think of it as a heart. But what they know of cold is no more than the shadow of a gatehouse in his dominion. And now he has come again. He walks at his time across the blue sky of the earth, and he sows the days of glass. They do not fall immediately. They fly out from his hand like birds settling at evening, but transparent. With a tiny clinking like that of sleet, they congregate at a height known beforehand, which they remember from the last time. No one has disturbed their encampment. Each time as they wait, they add a few improvements. They wait. More arrive. More. What a host. What a host. What a forest in the seed. The whole of the air above them and below them flocks to their camp, begging to be allowed to be their banners. The sounds of the glass smithies ring day and night. The stars laugh in anticipation. And the earth, being of that celestial ancestry, remembers this season before its creatures do. Now, if you mark their places day by day, you will see that stones weighing many tons have begun to move across level fields, carving deep grooves in the outcroppings, and you may be able to hear their voices, muffled rumblings and shriekings, so that you remember tales of caverns full of beards at the end of which spirits without age slept with their crowns on the tables. The roots of the trees feel a stirring, and the leaves tremble on still days. And now when you open the door at night, you will see huge animals leap away into the darkness. You will think at first that they are running from you. The eland is gone in a single bound, the white of his eye flashing like a comet. The cave bear breaks away like an ice jam on a black river. The mammoth moves as though stung, a black haystack, a night sweeping across the sky in silence. But they will not have seen you. You are no more to them than a writing on a wall. How long will you haunt the earth together? The catastrophe they are running from never ceases, but moves through the universe, recurring in its own time, whereupon the days of glass in their millions all fall together and remain, centuries of them, in a single solid sheet many fathoms deep. The animal's flight then is no more than a kind of cyclic worship, a dance before the event. It may consecrate them, but it can never save them. The glass days fall to the earth suddenly on a spring morning when the mammoth's mouth is full of daisies. And what of you? Do the animals run to your right or to your left? With the motion of the earth or against it? And have you saved your skins one after the other to offer to the translucent God? Have you invoked his protection each time a knife blade touched a stone, each time a glass rang? God of bells? Do you still have your little obsidian key which will allow you to, barefoot, the grating corridors, to pick it by the vast halls where the animals stand like clouds, to forget each in turn, to ease your bones and your anguish through the grinding doors at last, and into the head of the glass valley, and hear your first birds sing, and kill the creature which does not yet know you, and laugh at the first touch of feathers, and warm your hands around its heart, and eat. Go back from that to a poem which I was going to read. I mean, I guess the order makes itself, which I was going to read anyway, and which I see that the two belong together, and this is in a kind of reverse chronological order by about 7 years. It's a poem from The Moving Target that I, for some reason, feel kind of bound to read. It's a poem that began in '62 in the summer at a demonstration in San Francisco when three young Quakers tried to sail a trimaran into the nuclear test zone in the Pacific. I could just wait if there was these three men were arrested on the high seas, and they tried to bring suit against the United States government for piracy. I needn't tell you how that ended. And while they were being tried by the United States government, there was a demonstration, and a sort of, I don't know if it was a hardcore, but a core slept on the sidewalk for about 10 days while it went on. And I was among them, and it was a very good few days. And it was the beginning of this poem, these people who I hadn't known before I'd got there. It's called My Friends. My friends without shields walk on the target. It is late, the windows are breaking. My friends without shoes leave what they love. The grief moves among them as a fire among its bells. My friends without clocks turn on the dial, they turn, they part. My friends with names like gloves set out bare-handed as they have lived, and nobody knows them. It is they that lay the wreaths at the milestones. It is their cups that are found at the wells and are then chained up. My friends without feet sit by the wall, nodding to the lame orchestra. Brotherhood, it says on the decorations. My friend without eyes sits in the rain, smiling, with a nest of salt in his hand. My friends without fathers or houses hear doors opening in the darkness, whose halls announce, "Behold, the smoke has come home." My friends and I have in common the present, a wax bell in a wax belfry. This message telling of metals, this hunger for the sake of hunger, this owl in the heart, and these hands, one for asking, one for applause. My friends with nothing leave it behind in a box. My friends without keys go out from the jails. It is night. They take the same road. They miss each other. They invent the same banner in the dark. They ask their way only of sentries too proud to breathe. At dawn, the stars on their flag will vanish. The water will turn up their footprints, and the day will rise like a monument to my friends, the forgotten. There's another poem in that book, which is I should say that I suddenly realize in reading them that there's a new association for both of the poems with a younger poet in California who's having trouble with the police because he thought that pot should be legalized, and he thought that the Vietnam War was a bad thing, and they've been running after him with clubs for a couple of years as a result. Robert Mezzi, and I remember saying something about some poems of his recently. Bob Mezzi is very consciously Jewish, and he's aware of the Jewish tradition and the whole thing, and I was thinking about his poems and some modern Yiddish poetry, and came out of it with the feeling that one of the things that he made plain was that the diaspora is becoming inseparable from history. I mean, now we are all, the part of us which belongs to history is the part that we can't help, and the rest of us is, as the Hasidim would have said, in exile. I mean, we're all becoming exiles in that sense. This next poem is, in a sense, about that, although it was written 7 years ago, and I didn't know Bob Mezzi then. Before I read it, I want to say something about the last one.